Hey guys, let me get my music to turn off. It's like a little studio over here. You gotta like work everything. Okay, there we go. Ah, still having fun with the software. Okay, guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It's Jolene with Jovi Star Astrology. I'm going to break down the Super Bowl. I thought it would be really fun after this new moon in Aquarius to take a look at the charts for the Super Bowl, see if we can come up with any good predictions or information. I've pulled a whole bunch of charts, chart of the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, the quarterbacks, the inception dates for both the teams and both of the coaches. And you're going to want to hang out to the end because I did an orrery chart on the Super Bowl. And an orrery chart is a chart where you pose a question and you cast a chart at the exact time that you pose the question. And you read it in a certain type of chart. And I'm just learning orrery astrology. So do not place a bet based on the outcome of the orrery chart. But I figured I'd have a little fun and give it a shot. And who knows? I mean, we'll see what happens. I am learning orrery astrology, but it's quite an art, and it's going to take some time before I actually start using it in practice. So, not yet ready to do orrery astrology for clients, but certainly ready to try it and practice it for fun. So I figured I'd do it here. So hang on till the end. We'll check that out and see if the as above, so below, if I'm able to read that correctly in the orrery question for the Super Bowl. But we're going to get started here by taking a look at the chart for the Super Bowl itself in Las Vegas. So I'm going to pull up that chart here. There we go. Okay, so here you can see the chart. Let's just kind of go through and talk a little bit about what this chart is telling us about the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. I mean, first of all, it is tomorrow, February 11th. Kickoff will be at 3:30 p.m. there in Las Vegas, Nevada. We have a Leo rising chart. So Leo is ruled by the sun, and Leo very much represents high profile, right? It very much represents sports, ruling the fifth house of the zodiac. So very appropriate. This chart definitely, at least so far, checks out with as above, so below, which is the term for astrology that we use. So Leo rising chart, ruled by the sun, which is over here in Aquarius in the seventh house. So if the Super Bowl in Las Vegas is a Leo rising, ruled by the sun over there in Aquarius in the seventh house, which is other people. So we know that Las Vegas is going to be hosting this big, huge star-studded event with all of the elite athletes in the NFL playing the Super Bowl game. And so Aquarius is large groups of people, large diverse groups of people. Mercury can represent lots of people. Aquarius does. So we've got Las Vegas hosting this big, huge event for a large group of people. And it probably is, in Aquarius fashion, a bit chaotic and busy over there in Las Vegas. We have all of this energy here in the sixth house, which is interesting because sixth house is a house of service and hospitality. So if we're looking at the Super Bowl, completely checks out that we have all of these planets here in the sixth house. We have Venus in Capricorn, Mars in Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn. This totally checks out as an event, a sporting event for sure, based on, providing a service, hospitality, right? It's a physical sport, sixth house, big money, very Mars's athletes, and Pluto is definitely big money and large groups of people. So it's a big, huge event definitely checks out being in the sixth house there. I also found that the sixth house represents profits made from sporting events. And so when we're talking about Pluto, and this is and representing money, this is big, big, big money. We also have, let me get some of these lines out. We have this chart sitting as an Aries midheaven, which is definitely physicality. It's definitely sports, an aggressive sport, something that is fun and very physical. So that checks out. We have the moon over here conjunct Neptune in the sign of Pisces in the ninth house, which can also represent events and broadcasting and things like that. And we know Neptune represents mirrors and broadcasting and film. And we know that this will be televised. There'll be a lot of glitz and glamour going on during this event. But, we also might find that, the weather in Vegas, it might be a little cloudy, overcast, maybe even rainy. We'll have to see. But the chart of the actual Super Bowl definitely checks out with the astrology. So we're gonna take a look at this chart and as we're comparing it to some of the other charts. But I wanted to start off with that one. And then we'll switch over and we'll start taking a look at some of the other charts. Now, I'm going to do some bi-wills on these charts as well, so you can see how they compare. So we're going to look at Brock Purdy's chart first. This is the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. He is he's a young quarterback. He's actually still in his rookie contract with the 49ers. So he's going to the biggest game in the NFL, and he's not paid a Super Bowl quarterback salary quite yet, but he's paying his dues, and he got to the Super Bowl, and he's doing really, really well. So I'm sure his career, it's a great start for his career. So I'm sure he will do well. Brock Purdy, his birthday, December 27th, 1999. I had to use noon charts on a lot of these because I had to look them up outside of an astrology website. The astrology websites didn't have verifiable times for any of these guys, but that's okay. We can just look at their sun and glean as much information as we can. Brock Purdy was born in Gilbert, Arizona, so he hails from my home state. He went to a local high school here, Perry High School, who has been celebrating all week that one of their own is going to the Super Bowl. So that's exciting. Brock Purdy, we can't really go by his ascendant, like I said, because we don't know his birth time. I mean, I suppose it's possible he's a Pisces rising. I don't know, maybe it's off a little bit and he's an Aries rising. Maybe his sun is still close to the top of the chart, which is going to make him pretty popular and well-known in his work. I could buy that, but I'm not going to play around with that. But we have a sun in Capricorn, and that tells me that he's very hard. He's very, very hard worker. It tells me that he has probably worked and dreamt of being an athlete. In his case, a part of one of the oldest pastimes in our country, probably for as long as he can remember. And he has worked towards that tirelessly. It also kind of says that he's probably going to, it's possible he's going to be around for a while, I would say. So he's the sun in Capricorn, moon in Virgo, and in the sixth house. So, moon in Virgo is somebody who's very conscious of processes, who studies things very in detail. This guy, I'm sure, it just works. Virgo has a tendency to overwork itself, right? And he probably studies. This is probably a guy that studies playbooks and knows them by heart. Probably takes very good care of his body. Most athletes should, right? But sixth house is the house of health and routines. And so instinctually, that's just who he is, right? He thinks very practically. He operates in the day-to-day very practically. He studies. Very smart. I would say he probably plays smart. So super probably cerebral way of playing the game of football, which also makes him a really good leader and manager for his teammates and probably a good role model. Sixth house can be coworkers. He has a Mars over here in Aquarius, which it's pretty strong. And we know we have a lot of Aquarius energy. We just had this new moon in Aquarius yesterday, which was pretty much conjunct his Mars. So there's a new beginning here in some way for Brock Purdy, and Mars is your stamina and your physicality and your will and your drive. And being a football player, having a new moon on your Mars is a really good indication, a good sign that he should be operating or working, playing very strong in this Super Bowl. We also see he has the nodes in Leo and Aquarius. And why this is important is the last full moon we had happened on his north node, exactly conjunct his north node, which I found super interesting. In the house of games, right? Sports. And I think that this is a very good sign, having a full moon on his north node. It might be fair. It might help him. I mean, he might fare really, really well in this Super Bowl. He's had 2 lunar events on planets and points in his chart that indicate that he's moving towards his ultimate destiny. So very, very good sign. He also has a Jupiter and Aries in the first house. So this is somebody who is a powerhouse physically, fearless, very brave, but also very smart too in how he plays the game of football, right? How he uses his body to play the game. He has a Saturn and Taurus in the second house. So this is somebody who's very practical when it comes to how they build their assets, right? How and anything that makes them feel secure. So this is a guy who, again, along with his Capricorn sun and its trine, is a very grounded person. It's somebody who's grounded in hard work and really looking at how he can structure his life and build his work and his character around something that is solid and tangible, right? Material. So this guy is a very practical guy all the way around. We're going to take a look here at the chart. Let's take a look at Brock Purdy's chart and the actual Super Bowl event. See what we can come up with. See if there's anything that we can see. All right, so here we go. This is a bi-wheel. So out on the outer side is the chart of the Super Bowl. The event itself that we just talked about was the first chart we looked at. And then we have Brock Purdy on the inside. So how is he matching up personally during the Super Bowl? Well, we already talked about the fact that he had this new moon, new start, new beginning on his Mars, and how he had the recent full moon in Leo on his north node. But we also see that tomorrow during the game, he has the sun in Aquarius conjunct his Mars. So there very much is a spotlight on his physical activities for tomorrow. It's a very strong position for the sun to be focusing on his Mars for this game tomorrow. So I like that for him. He has all of the big game, big crowd, money-making event here sitting in his 11th house. He's got a Uranus in Aquarius, which is in its dignity there. His South Node does sit there. I don't know, maybe, it doesn't, the South Node means that we can be letting go of something. You'll hear that it means letting go, but the nodes are entry and exit points. So, if we have something to work out karmically, things can come back in via the South Node that we have to deal with from the past. Well, we know that the 49ers have played the Chiefs before, and he is now the quarterback. Could also be something that goes a little bit deeper than that. Not sure, but Mercury, which I find is very strong, I believe is very strong in the sign of Aquarius, is conjunct his Uranus. And yeah, he'll probably be a little nervous. There'll be a lot of people in these, with the crowds. He'll have a lot of pressure on him, but I think he's going to be able to rise to the occasion. He's a quick thinker. Uranus is the higher mind. Mercury is the lower mind. So the conjunction of the two, I think that he's going to be thinking and moving very quickly tomorrow. And so that kind of tells me that at least his mental state should be pretty good for tomorrow's game. He also, I think, he has a way of, I think, being able to operate intellectually, but also detach from all of the chaos, right? And tomorrow, I think that he'll be able to do that and just be able to stay really focused. Aquarius has the ability to do that, to sort of detach from, the emotionality of it all. And, being a Capricorn sun and Saturn in Taurus and a moon in Virgo, he's very good at that too. So I think he's going to be all business tomorrow. He has the North Node here, conjunct his Jupiter, which is a very, very strong position. Jupiter will expand his physicality. Jupiter is accolades, it's acknowledgement, it's strength in the sign of Aries, and he's got the North Node there. So his North Node in Leo, and he's got the North Node transiting his Jupiter. Very, very strong for tomorrow's game. It's almost like, and Jupiter can be, like I said, wins, accolades, acknowledgement. Very strong indicator for Brock Purdy tomorrow that there could be a win for him in the Super Bowl. What else do we have for him here? We have, without going into too much detail, we have Jupiter, transit Jupiter, conjunct his Saturn. So he's going to be feeling some pressure, I think. Saturn is very serious and wants to get down to business, get down to work, and Jupiter is going to be there sort of, probably creating more pressure on that Saturn. So he's going to be feeling it. But I think he'll rise to that occasion, especially with the trine to his natal sun in the sign of Capricorn. So tomorrow, when we look at Brock Purdy's chart for the Super Bowl, very, very strong chart for him tomorrow. I think he's going to be playing very, very well tomorrow. Okay, so let's take a look at Patrick Mahomes' chart. I'm actually just going to go ahead and throw the bi wheel up for both of those because I'll put Patrick on the inside and then the Super Bowl event on the outside. That way we don't have to go back and do too many more switcheroos. Okay, so for Patrick Mahomes, we have a sun in Aquarius. Oh, no, that's the... Sorry, guys. Sun in Virgo and moon in Cancer. And we don't know his rising, right? But just like Brock Purdy, a A sun in the sign of Virgo is somebody who's very calculated, very educated, somebody who studies things very carefully, very process oriented, right? Somebody who is able to turn things over very quickly in his mind and then transmit that through his body. That's a lot of what Virgo is. So strong sun. The sun is going to be trining, and I just kind of look at the sun will be trining Uranus in the 6th house. I really hope he doesn't have an injury, or there aren't injuries that cause problems potentially for the game, but that's a possibility there. It's also possible that he could be turning the game around. When Uranus is involved, and Uranus is involved in the chart right now anyway, we saw that with the new moon. It's really hard to predict exactly what is going to happen anywhere right now. And with Uranus trining his sun, it is kind of hard to tell, what that will signify. So other than, potentially a pretty fast-paced game, I don't think it'll be a high-scoring game because of all of that Pisces, but we'll see. So he has the trine there. Now we have the moon. Here's my biggest concern with this chart for Patrick Mahomes. Well, before we get to that, let's take a look at Mars and Venus. So you have Mars conjunct his Uranus, Venus conjunct his Neptune. Now Neptune isn't always bad. Venus, is not in its dignity. It's not in a good place in the sign of Capricorn, but it is very practical. It does represent for him something that if this chart is right, if he's a Scorpio rising, which, again, I had to do new charts, so I'm not sure. But interestingly enough, the sun is at the top of the chart, which makes some sense here. But neither here nor there. We have Venus and Mars conjunct his Neptune and his Uranus in the sign of Capricorn. Neptune can represent, dreams, right? Making dreams come true, or, being somebody who's almost, larger than life or not real and of this world. And that certainly can represent Patrick Mahomes and his performance at work, right? Capricorn in the NFL. But so, it doesn't necessarily mean Neptune doesn't always mean, dissolving, right? Or ending something, although it can be, can represent that. Mars conjunct Uranus is pretty strong. I think this will make him very driven tomorrow, very quick in his thinking. And, I think he's going to be, obviously, he's very practiced and very prepared, very determined with Mars conjunct Uranus. So he'll be very focused tomorrow. The ruler of his sun, Mercury, down here is pretty strong as well. And in the sign of Aquarius. So that's a plus for him, I'm thinking. We have the nodes, or the sun rather, tomorrow, that is trining and sextiling the nodes, which is pretty favorable. His nodes, which are in the inverse. So he's having a reverse nodal return right now. So the sun is trining his north node and sextiling his south node. So that's, trines and sextiles are known to be harmonious energies. And so that's actually positive too. I think so far what we've seen are both of these quarterbacks are going to be very focused, very determined, and ready to sort of go for it tomorrow during this game. So I think we're going to have a good game. It's going to be a really strong match tomorrow. The one thing about Patrick Mahomes' chart that concerns me is that he's coming into his Saturn return at the end of this year, but the moon and Neptune are going to be sitting right on his Saturn. I'm wondering, if he's not going to be either exhausted emotionally, maybe a little bit, sort of rattled and confused, feeling a little flat, maybe a little depressed. He could be having problems. Well, we don't even say could be. He is having problems with his family. We know from the news this last week that his father was just arrested for another DUI again. And we know that he's had issues with his brother when it comes to alcohol and arrests. And so, you know, Patrick Mahomes, not for nothing, he accepts a lot of responsibility for his family anyway. And, you know, he's usually very, very gracious and, you know, careful about how he expresses that, and even when he's asked those questions directly. But, you know, it's got to be weighing on him heavily. So I think his biggest challenge is going to be his, you know, how strong he's feeling emotionally, and whether or not he's tired or he's emotionally sort of stressed out from everything that's going on with his family. You know, the moon can represent the family, Neptune can represent issues with the family, and we know that he's had that. So I think, you know, he's a professional though, right? We know he's a professional. He's won more than a few Super Bowls. So if he can stay out of that mindset and detach from all of that, which, you know, Virgo can do that to a certain extent. They're able to do that, but Virgos do have a tendency to be nervous. So it just depends on how significant this opposition to his Saturn is affecting him. And a lot of times when you're coming into your Saturn return anyway, things can be overwhelming. There can be just immense responsibility, a lot, you know, a lot of heaviness, and just, you know, it's his first Saturn return. So it can slow you down a little. Pisces can slow you down a little. So that would be the biggest concern for me when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. So we'll see if he can stay focused. He's going to be in a really strong position. He has a Mars in Scorpio, which is in its home sign. So it's a very strong Mars in Scorpio, and it will be opposing Jupiter in the sign of Taurus. So, you know, he'll have a lot of pressure from the other team, from the other side. A lot of pressure when it comes to, you know, what's at stake for the win or the loss, especially in terms of money. But, you know, sometimes this is opposition, right? So pressure from outside for him to perform, Mars and Scorpio. But they're used to that, right? These quarterbacks and these players are used to being under pressure to perform. They know it's business. They know it's a game. So that's not going to be unusual, but there will be a lot of added pressure onto him there that is going to be exacerbated by the fact that I think he's going to be feeling a little bit heavy. His best bet with the sextiles to Uranus here and Saturn to Jupiter is to just try and hunker down, stay focused, put everything out of his mind. Hopefully the few days or the week that he's been there leading up to this, he's tried to get as much rest as possible, and he's just kind of tried to tune out everything, you know, all the drama and problems that are going on in his family, and not at this time try and tax himself too much by stepping up and trying to fix things, at least right now. So we'll see. But that would be the only thing I think telling me that he might struggle. He could struggle a little bit. He does have transit Saturn trining his natal moon in Cancer, and that should help keep him a little bit grounded emotionally, right? Saturn should provide him some stability emotionally. A moon in Cancer is very sensitive, and especially when it comes to family. So I'm sure he's feeling pretty stressed right now, but that should help him out. So if he can just hold on, he should be okay. So chart doesn't look too bad for Patrick Mahomes. We'll be watching this Uranus. Hopefully, like I said, we won't have injuries for him or to any of the teammates tomorrow. But he is going to be, he could be dragging a little bit. So hopefully his team steps up. I mean, obviously I wasn't going to try and do a chart for everybody on the team, but you know, if he's got good team support, it should be a good game tomorrow. It should be a good game. We shall see. Okay. So on to, I want to take a look at, I'm just going to show this to you really quick because it was super interesting. I don't want to really go into it too much, but I want to show you a bi-wheel overlay of the Chiefs chart and the 49ers chart. It's super interesting. Let's see, Chiefs, 49ers. Okay. All right. So this is really interesting. Look at all of this. Like if this isn't fated somehow, for these two teams to come together and work something out between them, I don't know what is. Look at this. We've got the nodes are in the same sign, conjunct one another. North nodes in Cancer. We have all of this Gemini here for the 49ers. And Gemini, ruled by Mercury, also rules games. It represents games in astrology. And we have the conjunction from Venus to the sun. So that's definitely sort of a fated, pulling them together to do what? To play games. Now, we can say maybe a lot of the NFL teams have correlating placements, conjunctions if we looked at an overlay, but San Francisco and Kansas City don't play in the same division. So, and that means, yeah, they play against each other every now and then, likely, depending on the schedule, but they're not like in the same division. So they're not playing each other all of the time. But here they are showing up in the big game together, not once, but twice. And what's interesting is Gemini is multiples. It usually when we see something with Gemini, it's more than one thing, right? So in this case, they come together to play Super Bowl more than one time, which is very interesting. Their ascendant for the 49ers is Virgo, and it is conjunct Uranus for the Chiefs. So that is a conjunction of meeting up, coming together. Mars is there. So it's just interesting when I looked at this. You've got the moon conjunct Neptune in Scorpio, which is interesting. That's just sort of like a drawing together. That's like a fated kind of just pull together. So they definitely have things to work out. And look here, they both have Mercury in the sign of Capricorn. Games, Mercury, and which rules Gemini. And so the ruler, Mercury, is about games. And the Chiefs, they do have a retrograde Mercury. So we'll see how that plays out this time. I mean, it didn't, they won before, right? So that's, not necessarily an indication that they're going to lose just because they have a retrograde Mercury. But interesting that their Mercuries are conjunct. So definitely they're coming together and more than once. So interesting chart there. Definitely looks like there's something fated here. Who knows why, right? But should be interesting for us to see. Okay, so let's go and look at what's next. What are we going to look at next? All right, so we'll take a look at Andy Reid, Andy Reid is the coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. And we'll look at him. Okay, so this is Andy Reid's chart. Coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. And his chart would be on the inside and the Super Bowl event on the outside. So what do we have here? Well, we have the sun conjunct his Chiron. That might be a little tough for Andy Reid. a lot of times when people look at sports astrology, they look at the coaches. So that's why I pulled the coaches up. So Sun conjunct Chiron, it can go either way. Maybe he's healing something, right? Eighth house. Well, we're not going to do the houses because we don't know the birth time. But if it were the eighth house, it'd be other people's money. But anyway, Sun conjunct Chiron, something about this event in Las Vegas either could bring out some kind of wounding for him, Aquarius groups of people, how things are circulating. So that might be a tough position for him. But we have a Mercury conjunct his Venus, which is it's a favorable conjunction. Mercury is good in Aquarius, but Venus, not so much, right? So we'll have to see how that plays out. Potential challenges. We have Moon Neptune conjunct his moon. He's going to be, Andy Reid's coming into his lunar return for the month. And it's conjunct Neptune. So, again, this could just represent all the glitz and the glamour and the eyes on him, but he could also be feeling a little bit tired and lagged down and a little bit fuzzy and confused, just sort of not on top of his game. It's possible. He's used to Pisces energy. He has a sun in Pisces. So he's having a birthday next month. We do have the North Node and Chiron conjunct his Mercury, which Mercury in Aries, games, coaches of games, conjunct the North Node and Chiron. So again, there's some kind of potential healing there. Mars in Aquarius is ruling his Mercury. They're they're not sextile by sign, but not by degree. What else do we have here? You have nodes, here you can see his chart. He's a coach, right? Sports Sag also represents the coach, right? The teacher, the guru. That's what he does for a living. So here you can definitely see he's a coach. He works with and pushes groups of people. Mars in Aquarius, that checks. So anyway, there's Andy Reid's chart. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Just to point out that he might be struggling just a little bit. And, I don't know if there's something going on in the organization. We said, Mahomes has having family issues, but maybe there's just some kind of, sort of somber, mentality or emotional, upset or unrest going on within the organization. It's possible. I have to wonder though, with Neptune and coming into contact with his sun, if Andy Reid won't be retiring soon. I have to wonder. I'm wondering after this, win or lose, if he decides to retire or he moves on to a different team. He's been coaching a long time. Looks to me like he's for a coach, we've had other coaches that are a lot older than him, but so there could be some kind of change here in his direction after this season or sometime towards the end of next year. So maybe we'll look at a change for him at the end of next season, possibly. Anyway, not a horrible chart for him. But it does kind of, he's being affected, especially since he has Pisces placements, he's being affected by that Pisces moon Neptune conjunction on his moon and his sun. So I don't know. Plus we have Saturn and Pisces. So I think kind of makes me feel like there's something going on in the organization potentially. Okay, so let's take a look at Kyle Shanahan and what's going on tomorrow in Vegas. All right, so here we have Kyle Shanahan, much younger than Andy Reid. Not that matters, but he is I think he's one of the youngest coaches in the NFL. He's done really, really well. Born in Minneapolis, Minnesota, December 14th, 1969. He is a Sun in Sag conjunct Neptune. Very possible that his Sun is close to the midheaven, even though we don't have a rising. Because he's very well known, right? Very well known for being a coach, probably coached college sports before that or played in college. A lot of coaches did anyway. I don't know for sure, but I'm certain he probably did. He's got coach's signature all over his chart too. Look at all this Virgo, Saturn and Virgo in the 7th house, instructing and teaching other people. Jupiter and Mars conjunct his North Node. This guy is definitely living out his purpose. He is a sports coach, and that was likely what he was destined to do. So he's there for sure. And, I'm not going to throw Brock Purdy's chart over, but we know Brock Purdy has a moon in Virgo. And so it's likely going to be probably conjunct his Jupiter. So that's interesting. They probably work very well together. So we have for Kyle Shanahan, we have his moon and Pluto conjunct the South Node. So just like we saw in the other chart we looked at, there could be something coming back in. So it's like very similar to, I think it was Brock Purdy's chart. And we have the North Node, nothing really hitting there, but the North Node is trining his Sun-Neptune combination. The North Node is where we're going. And yes, Chiron is conjunct the North Node right now, but this could be, a healing of sorts. So I see it as a pretty strong position that he's driven to reach, his goal, right? And that he's been working hard. He's got the strength and stamina to do that, and he's pushing to meet a milestone, right, in his career, which would be a win, his first win as a coach of the sport in the Super Bowl. We have the Pisces energy we were talking about that isn't really hitting anything in his chart other than a loose trine to Uranus and Scorpio, which could actually be advantageous for him. So I see that as a potentially positive aspect for him. And we have him coming into his Venus return. He has just had his Venus return rather. So that's very positive. Having just had his Venus return in the sign of Capricorn, Venus doesn't do really well. It's not that, I don't know. It's not that it doesn't do well. It's just not warm and fuzzy, but who needs to be warm and fuzzy when it comes to football? But he's just had his Venus return. So that's very positive. Mars on his Venus, Pluto on his Venus. This, makes him very strong, practical, and very well liked, I'm assuming, within the group, the organization. I think people like him, and I think a lot of people might want to see him win as a coach. But overall, when we look at his chart, it looks pretty good for tomorrow. He does have Saturn on his South Node, so we'll see what that brings. That could, this could simply be, the rematch between the Chiefs and the 49ers. And maybe this is, sort of coming back around from the past to see what happens here. So as long as he's coached well and his players are in good shape, I don't see that as being a detriment to him. Now, he does have Jupiter conjunct his Chiron. And like we talked about with the other chart that had Chiron contact with one of the planets in the chart, that can either be tripping a wound of his, or it could be helping him. Jupiter can bring good luck, overcoming. or it can bring pressure. But I think it's a positive aspect. Jupiter's overall, it's a benefic planet, so it's positive. So it's something that to me looks like might help him overcome that wounding. So we shall see. So his chart looks pretty good for tomorrow as well. So let's take a look at my last chart, which is the orrery chart that I did. The orrery chart that I was just playing around with to see what happens here. Okay, so here's the orrery chart. As you can see, the question that I asked was, will the Chiefs lose? Now, technically in orrery, you have to have some kind of skin in the game for it to be valid. I don't have a bet on this game, so we're not talking that. But I will say that even though neither of these teams are my team, the team that I follow, which is the Cardinals, I will say that I would like to see the 49ers win this game, just because I like to see somebody different winning. Like when the Patriots were winning all the time, I wanted to see somebody else winning. I'm a sucker for rooting for the underdog, right? So in terms of where I would, what I'd really like to see, I have been saying all along, I would really like to see the 49ers win this game, even though they're a division rival for my home team, which is the Cardinals, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. We're not in the Super Bowl, and we may not be for a very long time. But anyway, I'd like to see the 49ers win. So my question was, will the Chiefs lose? I asked this question at 1:07 p.m. Cast the chart today, February 10th. And the way the horary works is, for a sports question, the team that I would want to win, right, is represented by the sign on the ascendant. And so Gemini is going to be representing the 49ers. Their opponent, the other team, the Chiefs, which is a question I asked, will the Chiefs lose, will be their opponent. And they're represented by Sagittarius on the descendant. So what we do in orrery, and for sports orrery, it's like it doesn't matter if the moon is void, of course, although is it void, of course? Not really. I mean, it's not exact, it's coming into a sextile with Jupiter and into a conjunction with Saturn. But technically in orrery, if you run a chart and the moon is void, of course, which means the moon's not making any aspects, then the chart is no good. But it's different for sports, because especially for one game, we're not asking like, how are they going to do over a period of time? We're saying, how, are they going to lose this game? Are the Chiefs going to lose this game? So even if it is or were to be void, of course, it wouldn't really matter. I can still ask the question. So pretty simple, technically in orrery for a sports question like this, which is, what is the outcome? We're going to look at the ruler of the ascendant, which is Gemini. And we have that over here. Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. We have Mercury in the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is the higher mind. Mercury represents Gemini, which is a lower mind. Mercury does very, very well in the sign of Aquarius. So I would say in orrery dignity, the dignity of the planet is very, very important. So I would say this is a very strong position for the 49ers in this orrery chart. Now, Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, we have that over here in the sign of Taurus. And Jupiter, it's not horrible in Taurus, but it's not in an exalted or dignity, place of dignity, not like Mercury is in the sign of Aquarius. I think that the Chiefs are going to lose this game. If I did the orrery right, of course, like I said, this was just for fun. So I'm going to say, based on everything I've looked at, if Brock Purdy can stay focused, his team works well with him, he's got the drive. He's got some good placements. He's had some significant lunar events hit like his north node and planets in his chart. I think he's got a really good chance. I think it might be his time. I think that, let me stop the share here. I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to do very well, but I think that he is stressed out and he's got a lot of responsibilities on his shoulders. So, if he can stay focused at, being the professional that he is, it's possible they could win. We have Uranus in the mix. We just had this full moon square Uranus. It's like, when it comes to Uranus, expect the unexpected. We really don't know when we're trying to call something that has Uranus aspect. And of course, the sun is 22 degrees tomorrow, and it's squaring 19, Uranus 19 in Taurus. So can be unexpected turnarounds, changes, and things like that. So we don't really know for sure. But based on the charts and what I just went over with all of you, I am going to have to say that, to me, it looks like the 49ers have a really good chance of winning. So I'm calling the 49ers for the win tomorrow. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. But I think they're both going to work really hard. So it should be exciting, low score. And I think the 49ers. We'll see. So check back with me later. Put in the comments who you think is going to win the Super Bowl. And I'll be watching tomorrow. Hopefully you guys are watching tomorrow. I'll watch the comments on my video. We'll see what happens. I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was fun doing it. I wanted to do a fun video. So happy Super Bowl Sunday. Everybody stay safe out there. Hopefully whichever, most of our teams probably aren't in the Super Bowl, but who is it? Kyle Shanahan being from Minnesota, maybe folks up that way are rooting for the 49ers. And Andy Reid was born in Los Angeles, so that's in California. Wow, it should be really interesting. Really, really interesting. Is probably going to be super chaotic in Las Vegas. I don't know. When I saw that conjunction, that Pluto, we usually have like Mars, Venus, in Capricorn, Aquarius around the Super Bowl, but we've got Pluto there this year. And so I wonder, I don't know, it might be super like crazy in Vegas. And I think I said on my last video, I don't really think I'd want to be there, but it's also, I'm wondering what kinds of things might come to light or out in the open there in Vegas during the Super Bowl. There might be things that are being looked at, and gosh, if I were there and I were a high profile person, I would be watching my P's and Q's and making sure that I wasn't being caught on camera or caught doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing, because that Pluto in Aquarius is going to bring up and uncover things that are hidden and that represent things like abuse of power. So I'd be really careful in Vegas this weekend, whoever's going to be there. But also, hopefully, like everything in the environment and all of the people, the groups of people behave themselves and stay safe, because, that Pluto is different being there. Now, we had Pluto in Capricorn, and we had lots of Super Bowls, with Pluto close to those, to the planets at the time of the Super Bowl. Super Bowl is always in February, so it's always in Aquarius season, but we have Pluto at 0 degrees. So that's really, really potent. So hopefully everything goes off without a hitch and everybody stays safe. But I don't know, it could be interesting. Could be very, very interesting. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate y'all being here. I'll be back soon. We'll do some more videos. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. And I will, I'll see you soon. Take good care. Bye for now.